Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special edition for Black History Month. It's October of Women's LIK. It's great to see you, Sandra. I've missed you. I've not seen you for a while because I was missing for the last show.
I
But I was
know.
away working, and we're that as people can see. There's only two of us again for this show because Suzy unfortunately is not very well. So Suzy, if you're watching and listening to us in bed, take care of yourself and look after you. And get better,
Get well
get better
soon.
soon. Yeah. So, Sandra, what have you been up to? I've missed you.
I don't actually know where to start. What have I been up to? Well, I mean, it's been a really busy. It's been such a busy month for me. It's a busy week. Things that I've been doing. I've been writing articles for magazines, reading books for book clubs. Yesterday, I was talking at an event about type 2 diabetes. I was talking at another event for type 2 diabetes. It's been a whirlwind, and I'd be sort of kind of relieved when this month is over. It's sort of like it never rains, but it pours. Have you noticed that?
But the thing is, at the end of the day, are you enjoying it all?
I'm really enjoying it, but I'm like,
Good.
why do I end up always having three things or four things in one
week?
Day. Yeah, exactly. What about you? How's it been for you?
It's been crazy good for me because it's all the things that I enjoy doing. And like you, I'm preparing some information to actually go in a magazine as well. So that's new for me. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to take on that challenge. I was like a bit, great, that's fantastic. So and we've also been up and down as well doing the roadshow for Ultravision. So that's also been part of it. And that's been great.
That was a good day.
Yeah, we've been all over. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end when towards the end of the show. But I could talk forever. But we're here for the guests. So we've got two amazing guests today, Alva Wilson and Patsy Morris. And I'm going to start with having a chat, find out a little bit more about Patsy Morris. So if we can bring Patsy in and find out a little bit more about her. And all this is in relation to Black History Month. Hi, Patsy.
Patsy.
Good morning, Angela. Good morning,
Sandra. Lovely to see you, Patsy. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Good. The weather where you are, because it's absolutely tipping down with rain. I think someone's up there.
Oh gosh, yes, it's been pouring.
Mm-hmm. No, we still need the rain to kind of keep everything growing. Patsy, lovely to see you. Notice just come up there saying Patsy Morris, a retired nurse. But let's go back before you retired and let's have a little chat about. Mm-hmm. You came from Kingston in Jamaica.
That's correct, yes.
Which is very familiar for me because that's where my mum was. That's where my mum was born as well. And you came to England. How old were you when you came to England?
I was 12.
12 when you came here. So did you come with family or did you come? Because I know there were some children of that age that actually came. I know of some who actually came on the plane by themselves to actually come to family in England. So did you come with family or did you come to family?
Yes, I came with my grandmother.
Right, okay. Was the intention to come to London because it was Aylesbury? I think you landed.
But did you? No. My dad's or my aunt, the eldest aunt, her husband had an opportunity of coming to England to work in Aylesbury train station.
Oh, okay.
And that's how he came to England. And needless to say, he brought his wife and child, my cousin. And after that, my aunt, my dad's sister, said to him, oh gosh, England is paved with gold, you've got to come. So my mum, got the money together to help him because his family didn't have no properties or anything to sell like that. So my mum sold what she had and gave it to my dad for the boat tickets because in those days it wasn't plane, it was boat.
Yes, I remember.
And he came over in 1960 on the boat.
Yeah.
And that's how we ended up in Aylesbury. And needless to say, we stayed in Aylesbury because, there was nowhere else. You didn't know anybody and there was nowhere else to go. So we just stayed carried on in Aylesbury.
And it was typical for family who had already arrived here to, when other family members or friends came, that they would actually go to the area where they knew people. So that was
Yes,
that was
yes,
that was the
yes.
outcome.
Hmm.
So
By this time, just to say, by this
yeah,
time, there was 5 children of us all together.
yeah,
Yeah. And when my dad had earned enough money, he sent for my mom. And my
yeah.
younger brother was only about 4, going on 5 then. I think he
Hmm.
was more 4. So
Yeah,
he came over with my mom,
yeah,
and we were left with family in Jamaica. And
yeah,
then, as my parents got some savings, they
mm,
sent for us one at a time until we all
yeah.
came over. Mm.
So you coming to England at that time was a familiar kind of situation in terms of kind of people from the Caribbean coming as part of the Windrush. I know the Windrush boat that came was earlier than that, but you were part of a lot of people from the Caribbean coming to England in the 60s.
We were part of history,
Yeah,
but no one like made us part of history. Nobody told us we were part of history.
yeah,
There wasn't anything to read. Remember, you didn't learn about black folks in school. All you learnt
mm,
about was who's the kings and queens of England. Yeah.
yeah,
So we didn't know none of this. All that I know and all that I've developed, it's
mm,
because, for me anyway, most of it is to do with Black history. It's like me
yeah,
wanting to know one, as you said, later on, we'll probably go into this, but one
mm,
of the gentlemen who developed frozen plasma, because I'm a blood transfusion nurse as well.
right,
He drew. Again, I came across him by pure accident. Yeah, when I
mm,
did transfusion, and it was like I saw a poster and it said Drew introduced fresh frozen plasma, and I thought, what? And when I look back years, I
yeah,
think it was in the 1800s, coming in 1900s, when he introduced all of that. And
mm,
he had a road traffic accident, and he ended up dying from hemorrhage because and he was a black man.
yeah,
And where he had his accident, nobody knew him. So they left him to die. And he
okay.
was the guy who invented frozen plasma.
And
And
these are
frozen
the things, yeah,
everybody's,
yeah,
no matter who you are, if you need plasma or you need blood products,
that's where it
frozen
came
plasma
from.
is the thing. And to this day, it still is. Mm.
And he wasn't allocated that um
No, no,
it
he
that
was
that
not
idea,
treated
yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah, dignity,
respect or
yeah,
dignity that he deserved. No.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
And this is why again we keep having Black History Month in order to raise awareness of all the things that have been hidden, and to
Yes.
kind of bring those things to light for
Yeah.
the next generation to learn about. um
Yes.
So you arrived in England. What can you just give us a quick snapshot of what it was like for you, kind of leaving Jamaica, where everything's kind of green and lush and fresh food, and
Um,
kind of coming to England, it was stark, I
well,
bet, in comparison.
for the start, for the first thing was yeah, I was the second child that flew because my big sister came and she was flown over. Yeah,
Mm,
my parents and my brother was boated over, and then when I came, I was flown over with my grandma. And when I came to Heathrow, I thought that there had been a fire because there was no leaves on the trees.
yes.
We were
Yeah.
stuck in I can't remember what they call it now, but because the ground was so fog bound, we couldn't
Yeah.
land. So we had to go round and round in circles. They've got a term for it when you
Yeah.
circle the airport.
Yeah.
And then eventually they were talking about taking us to Manchester for us to land.
Mm,
But we were still laden with fuel,
mhm,
so we were
yeah.
fine. And
Yeah.
then eventually you literally saw the fog cleared and you could see the houses below. Yeah. And that's when we realized that we were actually in a town, over a town. But when we got in the car, we were driving from Heathrow to Aylesbury, it was really eye-opening because and needless to say, my brother was here before, and my brother went, "Oh, you silly fool, behave. Of course we haven't had a fire. The leaves have fallen off the tree, you know?" And my thought was, why were the leaves falling off the tree, you know?
Yeah.
And he was trying to explain, that it was winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, autumn going into winter now, because I came in September.
Yeah. What did you
you know,
yeah.
I was
Your
just going to
first
say the
experience.
other thing was that my mum was pregnant with my youngest sister at the time. Yeah. I think she must have been 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9. She probably was around about the 5, 6 months pregnant. So to see her pregnant was another thing because my mum was an older mum by this time. And it was like, how can you be pregnant at your age? You know? Yeah. She had my sister when she was 40. Yeah.
Okay. Which is
And
like, there are older women now having the children at that time, but at that time it was seen as
at that time, no.
It was a
It
no-go
wasn't
area.
no. You know, like in Jamaica, it's like you get to like the 17, 18-year-olds, and that's who were having the babies, not the 40-year-olds. The 40-year-olds were the grannies then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take that. I'm not a grandmother yet, though. But I understand what you were saying. So it was a stark contrast from leaving Jamaica and kind of coming to England.
Oh gosh, yes.
What did you miss about Jamaica while you were here? Just very quickly, when you arrived
The
here,
first thing was the warmth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Because luckily my mum bought me a duffel coat that I lived in.
I can imagine.
I used to wear it. It was like a big, in those days also, you never got your size. You got a bigger size. Yeah.
Yes.
You grew into it.
Yeah.
So I had this duffel coat that I grew into it, and I stayed growing into it because I had it all throughout my school life.
Yeah.
And in a way, it was lucky because you come from Jamaica and you have sort of like a little cotton dress on with your, and we used to wear hats then, your fancy little little hat on your head and your gloves,
Yes.
and
little white gloves
with your little white cardigan, and you were freezing cold because look at how beautiful the weather is now. Yeah. In those days, snow was like 2 feet on the ground by now. Yeah. So my duffel coat was a big thing for me. Yeah.
Well lived it. So you came here young. When did you decide, or had you always thought about becoming a nurse? When did you? I know you started your training.
Oh gosh, no, absolutely not. I went to school here from 65 to 69, and when I finished school, my careers teacher was looking for jobs for all of us. I wanted to be a receptionist, but the GPO wouldn't have you to train as a receptionist until you were 18. And by this time, I was 16 going on 17. So they told me to come back in a year's time and they would have me, even though I would not have been because my birthday is December, so I wouldn't have been 18 until December. But she said if I came back in the autumn, they would have me. In the meanwhile, then I had to find a job. And I looked at local industries. Most of the industries that are in Aylesbury, I was sent to them. And one man actually told me that I could not be the face of his firm. And being a young 16, 17-year-old girl, my attitude was, why wasn't I a face of the firm? I'm a pretty young girl, I could sell iced Eskimos, you know, kind of thing. And he said, no, not when you're black. Yeah.
Wow.
So
And it was as blatant as that back then.
yes, and this was
Wow.
in 69. Nobody was afraid of calling you names. Nobody was afraid of hiding everything. You know, racism and all that is very, very covert now. But in those days, it was open. Yeah. And
Actually in your face, wasn't it? Yeah.
in your face. Yeah. You saw the notices that says no blacks, no, or they either say no blacks or no coloreds, depending on how forward thinking they were, and no Irish and no dogs.
No
Yes.
dogs, yeah.
And I've lived through that. I've seen it. Yes. I can tell people, to this day, I can point at the house in Aylesbury where I've seen those notices put up on. Yeah. And the firms, I can point at the firms and tell them. Nowadays, they would look at me and say to me, so I said, what are you talking about? I said, yes, it happened. It happened. And it happened to me. It wasn't like I was asking anybody. Yeah. It happened to me. Yeah.
And I still remember as a child seeing the writings on the wall, you know, wogs out and things which you know, this generation probably never heard of. But I do remember seeing those written on the wall. So I know how blatant it was in your face as a child.
So then the last week of school, my careers teacher got an envelope from Stoke Mandeville Hospital, and they were introducing to her pre-nursing course. And that had just started in England. So I was one of the first pre-nursing students in England. And it was, what you call it, like an apprenticeship. So you did nursing and you did studies at the Oxford Road College, you know, the college there. Yeah. And that's how I got into nursing. And of course, my mum was a nursing auxiliary. So I'd lived through that. So it was the last thing I ever wanted to do. You know, when she'd come home and she'd tell you how white personnel's treated her and so on, it wasn't what I wanted to do. However, I could not get a job. I could not get any sort of office clerical type jobs. I was told also at that time that as a woman of color, the only thing I can do is go and work in a factory. Yeah.
Or to clean. Yeah.
Factory. I wanted something for me. I wanted to do that one step up from my parents. Yeah. So I decided at the last minute I would go to Stoke Mandeville, and I went there, saw the matron, and she told me all about the course and everything. And I said, oh, that sounded interesting, because now I would be getting opportunities to do some academic work as well as some physical work. But that's how come I took on the pre-nursing course. When I finished it, I was told by the new matron that girls like me from the Caribbean cannot study at an academic level. So they didn't want me to become an SRN, to do the SRN course.
Which is state registered nurse. Yeah.
So I had to do the state enrolled nurse, which is the lesser course, because now I could manage that, but I couldn't manage the state registered course. I told him that's not what I wanted to do, and he said to me, well, that's all you can do. And with that, I gave him my notice there and then, and I left. And when I went home and told my mom, needless to say, she wasn't happy. And she was given a magazine, and I cannot remember the name of the magazine, but it was one of these glossy magazines at the time, somebody given her, and she brought it home for me. And when I was leafing through it that evening, I noticed a course for the Royal Navy. And one of the things with the Royal Navy was that you did your nursing, and then once you qualified, they would send you abroad. And I really wanted to travel. At the time, I didn't know that I was travel sick. So traveling was not going to be for me, but I really wanted to travel. And I applied, and they had me for an interview, and I went.
Yeah.
But they told me at the time that I had to have 5 O levels in order for them to take me as an SRN.
Yeah.
They wouldn't acknowledge what I'd done in the pre-nursing course or anything. I must have the 5. There was no oh God, well, you could no sanctions, yes, at all. So I said to them, okay, then when I qualify, I can go abroad. They said yes. So I joined the Navy.
Great.
But little did I know that I was going to have problems again.
Oh, listen, Patsy,
So,
it's. I was going to say, I'm going to cut you short a little bit because of time. I'm just going.
yeah.
I know. I'm going to pass you over to Sandra, who's got some more questions for you, so you can elaborate on some of the things
Yeah.
you've already started already, and then we'll come back together at the end and continue our conversation. Okay?
Yeah.
It's been lovely talking to you. Pass you over to
And
Sandra.
you.
Thank you. It's really interesting listening to your
Yeah.
story, Patsy, and the fact that you joined the Navy. I've got so much respect for you. The things that you've actually, you know what I mean. You were still brave. I don't know if brave is a choice of word, but did you enter the Navy then? What happened after that? I know it's a long story, but I still want to hear that next step.
No. When
So
it
you
comes to the Navy, it's like the Navy is now in what I would describe as 3 tiers. What the Navy is now, in like everybody comes in and everybody goes to sea, everybody does everything, whether you're male or female.
Yes.
But in my day, you joined the Navy and you were like in 2 folds then. Is like you joined as a naval nurse or you joined as a REN.
Oh,
And the
okay.
2 of them were very different, not to be mixed. So I joined as a naval nurse, Queen Alexandra naval nurse, and I was able to do all the nursing things the same way like all the men would do as like the paramedics on
Oh, yes.
but they used to do what they describe as the field paramedics, and we used to do the hospital paramedics. So I actually went to a hospital, but as a group we trained together, we had training together. They would go off to war, but we never went to war. Nowadays I would have to go to war, but in those days we didn't go to war. Yeah.
It's amazing how much has changed. But you didn't just
Yes.
study. Obviously, you had a nursing career, and I know that you went on to do other training. What other qualifications did you achieve in the end? And it's
Oh gosh, I did. No. I did loads of things because from my nursing, from the Navy, I came back. I worked for CBS for a short while, CBS Records, and then I got a job in the young disabled unit at Stoke Mandeville. Again, that was a different kind of nursing because you were looking after people in need, paralyzed people or people with dementia, or what's the other one that call when you, oh God, see, I think I've got big dementia as well.
No, don't say that.
What's it called? Something.
Are you thinking of Alzheimer's or?
No, I was thinking of something that starts with an M. Oh,
in terms of a qualification,
it used to attract young people and leave them disabled. Yeah,
meningitis?
and they would. No.
No.
They
Okay.
literally would be walking around and they would start falling down, or they would fall down the stairs and then they would miss getting up on the bus and those kind of things. Oh,
Like
it's
multiple
going away.
sclerosis?
Parkinson's was another one as well.
And multiple
Yes.
sclerosis? Was that one of them?
Multiple sclerosis. That's the one I'm looking
I got
for.
it.
Multiple sclerosis. So all of those kind of mixed disabled people I looked after. So again, it was a different kind of nursing. And from then, I went on to, they decided to get rid of the state enrolled nurses. and they would have to then either do an SRN course, or they would have to go leave or do nursing auxiliary. Yes.
Oh yes.
So I applied to do the SRN course and got on, because by this time I'd gotten some more O levels, because I attended evening classes to get more O levels. So I had more O levels, and they said to me, because of all the work I did, yes, I could join. So again, I became a state registered nurse at Stoke Mandeville. Yeah.
Congratulations to you as well for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I then went on to
I was just going
work.
to say, anyone watching, you keep mentioning Stoke Mandeville, and obviously Andrew is actually from Sheffield and lives in Sheffield. And anyone watching, before we go on any further, Stoke Mandeville Hospital is in Aylesbury. It was a hospital known for paraplegics as well. And Ludwig Gutman was the gentleman that sort of like was head of that. So if anyone watching, Stoke Mandeville is where the paraplegic games took place and take place.
Yeah.
The Olympic Games.
That's where they originated from.
Yeah, that's where it originated from. So if anyone doesn't know about it, but Patsy, continue. Sorry, I just interrupted you for a moment. Yeah, so you became.
Yeah, so so from then I went, and when I qualified and as a state registered nurse, I worked in the accident and emergency department, and we were getting women in with womanly problems, let's put it that way. And none of us understood what to do. Yeah. So if you had a woman who came in with an antepartum hemorrhage or a postpartum hemorrhage, we just treated them as an hemorrhage, doctors, 2 lines, cross match, those kind of things. But we hadn't got a clue what we were doing. Yeah. And then I decided that rather than doing more emergency treatment, I should go and see what I can learn about midwifery. Because by this time, I begin to understand that all of these things came under midwifery. So I went and did midwifery, and I went to St. Heliers near Epsom, Carshalton, near London here. And that's where I did my midwifery. And from there, qualifying, I went to Dulwich Hospital, and I worked there for a while, where they centered on looking after women who were, inverted commas, normal. But anytime you send out a label and says it's normal, they never considered that when can normal become abnormal. So we used to have a lot of abnormal things. Eventually, they closed Dulwich down, and I went to work at King's College, the famous King's College London, but the hospital side. And all the academic work we did through King's College London University College. Yes, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it does make sense. It sounds like you've had a very varied career, but you did retire in 2013 for 5 years, then went back to nursing. What was the reason for that?
A financial thing. You get to 60, and it was by this time there were 2 schemes for your pension. And the pension supervisor said to me when I went and asked, he said, if I continued working full time, I would only be killing myself, because if I retired and then come back and do still a similar job, the money that I earn for working 2 days a week would still be the same money that I would earn for working 5 days a week. Yeah. And my health was beginning to deteriorate, even though I didn't know at the time what was wrong, but there were health issues at the time. So I retired, got my lump sum, and went back and worked 2 days a week. And then I worked 2 days a week for another, I think it was 5 or 6 years. And then I fully retired. Yeah.
Wow.
And most people, that's what they do now. They retire as soon as they're able to, and they will go back and do a couple of days, because they said if you do 15 hours you can do. So some people go back and do one long day, which is 12 hours, or they do 2 short days, which is 7.5.
Fair play. And I'm actually seeing that now. I work for the NHS, and I'm seeing nurses. I think due to COVID, nurses are retiring and then coming. It's sort of inspired people to retire. It's sort of, COVID has made people change things, and that's what nurses are doing now. We're going to bring you back on at the end so that we can ask you a few more questions. I've got more questions to ask you, but due to time, I will ask you at the end of this. So it was really great listening to you, and obviously, especially as there were a lot of Black. Just seeing the fact that you trained, and obviously a lot of nurses were auxiliaries, but the fact that you trained, went further, is a real, tribute and compliment to the nursing. That the fact that you continued and much further, really, really positive. So thank you very much.
When I was training, I was the only Black. The only Black nurse, I should say, the only Black nurse throughout all my training. Every other Black person that I met were nursing auxiliaries. For the majority of my thing. It was only when I went to London, that I became one of 2 or one of 3 or so. But when I say I could count the amount of Black nurses on one hand, that was it. But like in Stoke Mandeville and that, I was one of one.
Greatest respect to you. Thank you
very
much.
I was one of one.
I can imagine. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We're going to put you back in the green room and then bring you back out again at the end. But really, thank you. It was really good to listen to you. It's really, your journey is amazing. So
thank you, Patsy.
Thank you, and bring out Alvin. That would be great. If we've got Alvin, we know he had some computer issues, so we're hoping that we've got him now. Have we got Alvin Wilson with us today? Doesn't appear that
we have.
I know we have issues, so we're hoping it works.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see. Now we can see you. So welcome, Alvin. Alvin we know you're a milliner and artist. Welcome to Women's LIK.
Oh, before you say anything, it's Alva, Alva.
It is Alva. I just said the wrong name. I do apologize.
Alva?
Yeah, Alva. I do apologize. We've got Patsy, your name, Patsy Morris, on the screen as well. It is Alva, and I do apologize. Yeah, it is Alva. I am sorry. I've got Alvin in my head, and I don't know why that is.
There we go.
Anyone who's watching, it is Alva.
Alva,
so I
will
apologize. Listen, Alva, thank you very much for joining us. Look, tell us about, because we're going to go back in history a little bit. Tell us about your childhood and growing up in the UK. What's your earliest memory?
Is he frozen? Oh.
Sorry, there's some connection problems. I can't hear you at all.
Oh,
I heard what you said about my childhood. You want to hear about my childhood?
It was, what is your earliest memory?
I can't hear you. There seems to be some connection problem.
Can you? Oh, we're having problems, Peter. We might have to. Let's see what happens now, guys. This is real life, remember? So we're in real time here. So things like this does happen, and it did happen last time. Why don't we, Angela? So it was really interesting, obviously, talking to Patsy.
Yeah.
So what about you? Do you have any nurses in your family at all? Or,
we did. Well, not a qualified nurse. As Patsy was talking, my mom came in I think she came in 1961, I think.
Oh yeah.
And became an auxiliary nurse, and that's what she did the whole time while I was growing up. But she worked nights.
My mom
did nights for about 25 years. She did that. So start work at 8 o'clock in the evening. We'd go to bed, and she'd be back home early in the mornings, getting us ready for school and getting us off for school, and then coming home and we had dinner ready, and then she was off to work, and it's a long time. She's been retired now. I mean, she's 85 now. God rest her. She's still, yeah.
My mum's but do you remember, the one thing I do remember in terms of the nursing, my mum was an auxiliary nurse, is the fact that my mum was always tired. all the time.
Always.
Yeah.
But it's not surprising, because I mean, night work, that
Yes.
messes up all your kind of circadian rhythms, and you kind of like, because you're supposed to be asleep when you're awake and all those kind of things. So, but doing that for 25 years,
I know. I've got the
long
greatest
shifts.
respect for anyone that does
seriously. And I don't know if the auxiliaries are kind of doing those kind of hours anymore. And I know there's a lot of nurses do like different shifts, don't they? Do day shifts, night shifts. Because I know someone who did was a mental health nurse. They said that they would do 12 hours night shift for a week, and then they'd have a week off to kind of recover, I guess, and then come back and do days. And to be getting up at different times, I can't even imagine that. But it was tough. It was tough work.
Of course, it was tough, and in terms of for my mum, I mean, my mum took what she could, and I always think about the fact that my mum had 4 children, and then she was still working nights. When she got home in the morning, and my mum had to plait 3 of our hair, so we actually had 3 daughters, 1 son, and she plaited our hair. And I just remember my mum falling asleep, so we'd fight who would go first, because we know that the last one, she'd be falling asleep while trying to plait our hair. She was.
And it was a bit skew whip and things. And,
a heroine.
My
mum was a heroine. I mean, she was so good, but she'd sleep in the day while we were at school, and then when we got home, she'd wake up and be, we'd find her in the kitchen now, starting to cook. She never complained. My mum, I look at her now and I think, oh my God, she's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, could we bring Patsy on for a minute and maybe ask her about her charity work? Because I know she's done charity work. Well, we haven't got Alva.
So I hope we can get the IT sorted. But
Patsy, we brought you back again because Alva's having computer issues. So we've got other questions for you. Can we ask you? I know that you've been involved in charity work, and I know that you do a lot. I know Patsy personally; she's an amazing lady. I know her family, and they're amazing, and they all work very hard. What sort of charity you like helping to support children? Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, I would say that my charity working started when we volunteered to work at Stone, which was the the hospital for mentally ill people near Aylesbury. It's literally adjoining to Aylesbury. And I was probably about 14 then. And I was on 2 BBC programs. I'm sure if they dig them out of the archive 40, 50 years ago. No, more than 50 years, wouldn't it?
They can dust them off.
60 years ago, yeah. they would find them. And so that's where I started. And so I would say from I was 14 and I carried on, and I've done, oh gosh, there's so many things I've done that I don't even remember them. But the 2 organizations that I'm with at this moment is Kiwanis, and that's worldwide, but predominantly there is a big following in Europe and the USA. And many of you might have heard of Kiwanis. And also in Jamaica, it's also very, very prolific in Jamaica. And the Jamaican Nurses Association.
Wow.
And it's all
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, awareness and education and the young, and getting young people interested so that they realize that they should be giving something back to their community. And that's one of the things that I've always wanted to do, and I've always done it, is to give something back to my community. So like although I spend an awful lot of time in London still, I still go back to Aylesbury and do voluntary things, for like Black History Month. This year I was a bit disappointed, but because of my health and hospital appointments and stuff, I couldn't get involved. But before the lockdown, we did a Black History Month event, and we did like a market place, and we did all of these things where you put lots of Caribbean style, well, I should say Afro-Caribbean style foods together, and show coal pots that used to be used, the dresses we used to wear, the national costumes, all of those kind of things. And I myself did a lot of things about, I was telling you about Drew, I can't remember his other name, but things like those. And I copied lots of stuff like that and put them posters up so that everybody could see who invented the Hoover.
That was I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
It was at that event. It was a very good event. No, but thank you very much for the work you do. I don't know if we have lost Alva again. Have we lost Alva? If we haven't lost him, we'll continue to talk to Patsy. Have we lost Alva? We're not quite sure what's going on. He did come in for a minute, but we had to talk to Patsy. This is real life, so that we have to keep going and just rolling with it.
Roll with it, yeah.
Things do happen.
And also one place that I want to give a mention to, well, two people, was the Macmillan Trust and the Florence Nightingale, because my mum had cancer. And she was a very, very private person, so she wouldn't get involved. Yeah, but we eventually got her to go to Florence Nightingale. They had like a day center, and she would go. And they, because she was one of these people, if you gave her a cup of tea, she would accept the cup of tea, but she wouldn't drink it because you've given it to her in a mug that somebody else drank out of. You had to give it to her in a, you had to open a carton, take a paper mug out and give it to her in the paper mug. Otherwise, she wouldn't drink it.
Well, we know what the parents are like. They were set in their ways, and they still are. Let's face it. I've got, you know my parents, and they've all got their way about them. We have to kind of almost accept that, don't we?
Yeah.
Is there anything you miss about nursing? Like, what, do you have a good moment, a good story to tell us? Because I know that there's bad stories. Is there something good about the nursing? Is there like a best moment, a good story that you could tell us, that you're obviously nothing confidential, but something that really makes you smile?
I always I was a supervisor of midwives, and what happens with being a supervisor of midwives is that you would advise, educate, and help midwives along the way. And if they got into any trouble, you were there as their support, their mentor, yeah? And I must admit, when I started doing that and things to do with risk management, that area of the work I absolutely loved, because nobody could tell you what to do, yeah? You had to get this individual, sit down with them, go through the rights and wrongs, yeah, and get them to acknowledge or accept what they've done correctly, what they've done incorrectly. How can they change that? Yeah. So that part of my nursing, I must say, I thoroughly enjoyed. I really and truly enjoyed that. The rest of my work, I was always robbing Peter to pay Paul. If my white colleague was here with me now, she would tell you that she went for one interview, she got the job. I had to go for 4 interviews to get the job. And when I go, I found that I had almost 10 times more qualified for the job than her. Yeah. And I've been in a situation where I've been told I'm overqualified for a job. Yes. And the reason why I'm overqualified is because wherever there was something going that interests me, I would apply for it and go and do it. So I've got endless. I keep telling everybody that my name is short in that it's Patsy Marie Morris, but I've got more qualified initials after my name than my name. Yeah.
Wow, because that's impressive. And also inspiring, isn't it? Yeah.
The thing is,
I was never a high flyer. I was never a director or I don't know, a business sort of person, if that makes sense. Yeah. So therefore, I describe myself as being an average Black woman. Yeah. Who did an extraordinary job.
Okay.
But it's only now that I'm out of it that I can see that. Yeah.
And there's there's nothing average about you. And
I was going to say, when you said average, I was like, that's the last word I would have used for you.
You're like one of those dynamic women. But in your retirement now, because you're a strong lady, and even if I talk to you, I'm like, this lady's great. What are you doing now in your retirement?
Since I retired, I was 3 years in lockdown, and I literally was petrified of going out the house. So I spent 3 years inside my house. I didn't go anywhere.
Wow.
Now, my sister came once a month and did a big shop. And when I said a big shop, I mean a big shop. And she would put it on the doorway. And I said, go away. Yeah. Because I was so scared. Because now I couldn't understand how you would sort of have a disease and then they would just suddenly develop a vaccine. And I remember all of the things with vaccines. And to this day, I still can't remember when we had a war. And I was in the Navy then, and I had to vaccine all of these soldiers. And technically speaking, I was one of the nurses who gave a lot of these soldiers vaccines, and they were given it in such a way that there wasn't enough time for one vaccine to take hold before they had the next vaccine. And what they found was that some of these vaccines didn't mix, and it did them more harm than it did them good. Yeah. But unfortunately, I was one of the nurses who vaccinated them. Yeah. So all of those things was going on in my head, and I really didn't like it. So I stayed out of it.
No, but
and then since coming out of lockdown, I've been physically, I wouldn't, not so much mentally, but physically ill, because the heart doesn't do what it's supposed to do anymore.
Sorry to hear that, and we hope that you get stronger from this. Glad to hear that. Obviously, health is really important. Now, what do you think about nurses today? How do you think it differs? I'm quite intrigued to know. Aren't you, Angela?
Absolutely, that's going to be my question as well. Yeah,
I see the nurses now. I want to know what you think.
For me, there needed to be change, but the change that's happened is not, for me anyway, I do not think it's so much so of a caring nature. It's more of trying to get nurses to become what I describe as big shots. Yeah, they want to become higher nurses and educated nurses and so on and so forth. But many of them do not want to do the caring work. And nursing is all about caring. Yeah.
It's known as the caring profession.
Yeah. And I was going to say, sorry, Patsy, to talk over you. I was going to say, do you think it's because they're now tasked with so much to do that the caring side of it has diminished? Because I kind of see them running around and they've got reports to write and data to collect and things like that. Do you think that is part of the reason?
From my point of view, is we always did all of those things.
Yeah.
Yes. And so for me, none of those things have changed. Yeah. However, there are certain things that's come into life, like for example, with all of this COVID business, and you have to check to see if they've been vaccinated or what haven't you, or where you're going to go, or that sort of stuff. So you're looking at that anyway. So that may well be a bit of an additional work. But everything else was all there before. Yeah.
Yes.
So you had to do it. You had to do it. And in our days, it's like we seem to have found different ways of doing it. Yeah. But we just did it. I spoke to a friend of mine last night. She's supposed to finish work at 6:00. At 8:00, she's phoning me and she said, I'm having a quick chat with you before I leave work. I thought, what are you still doing at work? And she's telling me that The girl she worked with, she finished at 5 o'clock and she's at home. And there she is, catching up on her bits of paperwork and doing everything. Yeah? Now, why is it that what is happening? How I'm looking at it is what is happening that I'm working with a white lady. She can finish at 5 o'clock and go home. But me as a black woman, I have to like dot my I's and cross my T's 10 times over to make sure that everything is in place before I leave. Yeah? And in a way, nothing like that hasn't changed. That was always there from time immemorial. Yeah, it's a bit like nurses all in my days, black nurses had to have triple and quadruple qualifications compared to our white counterparts. And if you didn't have it, you never got the job. I've had a very, very senior midwife, director of midwifery services, and she turned around and said to me when I applied for a job, I never knew you had these qualifications. So I said to her, but you've never asked me.
Yeah.
She said, but how can you have all these qualifications and doing what you're doing? I said to her, I like doing what I'm doing and I want to be informed. So I've applied for all of these jobs. Well, who paid for it? She said. I said, I paid for it. Every one of these courses that I've attended, I paid for them. Nobody else paid for them. Because even when I applied for grants, I could not get the grants. So I had to pay for them for myself. Yeah.
I kind of feel a bit like that myself, because even trying to better myself, if I want to do a course, I literally just do it.
Yes.
And I did tell, in the past, I've told people I'm going to do something and they've talked me down and I've just paid for it myself. Because I just think, what the heck? I want to do the course.
For you. Yeah.
It's not me doing what I want to do. And I know that my dad had the same issues when he came to this country in the 60s. And it's not all doom and gloom. There were good times and there were bad times. And he was very clever and knew that he could do well. He was clever in Jamaica. And I don't mean, and he knew that he was academic, and he was being given menial jobs to do where he was working. And if it wasn't for the guy, the manager, whoever, was very nice to my dad. I think my dad on purpose did something wrong. And then the manager asked my dad, why did he do that? And my dad said, I'm clever, I'm really educated, but I want to, and he said, the manager said to him, what do you want to do? He was a nice person. And my dad said, and he said, I'm going to send you to college. Right, I'm going to help you. And that's what he did. So that was a nice story in a sort of like, obviously it was in miserable times, but it was a nice person out of all that. So it appears that you really did go through a lot in your time though. And my mum's got many a story to tell as well.
Yeah, same with my mum as well, because my mum wasn't. We've just been talking while you came off it. Both our mothers were auxiliary nurses, and it was hard work. And they would work, she worked nights for 25 years.
Yeah, because my own mum, she had, I said to somebody the other day, my mum finished work 4 weeks before the baby was due.
Wow.
She then had the baby, and then she went back to work 6 weeks after the baby was born. Yeah? God. We never had no carers looking after us. Yeah? I was 13 when my mom had my sister. My mom went back to work working nights, and my dad used to do shift work. So when my mom was on nights and my dad was on nights, it was me and my brother at home with my baby sister, and we looked after her. Yeah. We did everything.
Wow.
Yeah. I even tell a story about my nephew, Jason. I sometimes wonder how Jason's so brilliant. He's an architect and he's done all sorts of, Sandra knows him anyway, because he's done all sorts of that I can't even.
I do love him. I'm a married woman, but I do love him. He's a lovely
And I heard a bit of Jamaican coming out of you there, Patsy.
Yes. But Jason, when Jason was born, we used to make Jason's food. And by this time, my young sister was a bit grown up, so I used to teach her how to do the baby's food. So when we used to do the milk and we shook it up and everything like that, the milk used to look watery. So we used to put another 2 spoonfuls of food in it. Yeah. We hadn't got a clue that that wasn't right. And that's how we used to do it.
Goodness.
They came and my sister said, how can I be spending all of this much money on the baby food? It's more expensive than the food I eat. So I said to her, are you mixing up right? You know, sort of thing. One spoonful to 1 ounce. And me and my sister stand there, and my sister's going to say something, and, you know, you stomp on her feet, you know?
Gosh.
But to keep her quiet, yeah. But we used to overfeed Jason.
Oh my God.
I tell you that was bad for him.
I wonder what he's like with his eating now.
Maybe if we didn't overfeed him. Well, exactly, he would have a bit more intelligence.
Exactly. That's probably why he's an architect and all that food. But look, I'm going to have to get Alva back with us. But Alva was going to be talking about, because he was part of the Windrush era as well. And I need to mention his events, obviously, because this is one of the things he was going to be talking about. And Alva's event, it's Alva Wilson, is called Pop Your Collar. And it's on October the 27th. It says here, a Black History Month retrospective of fashion, I'm reading it off my phone, music and social change in the 1980s by visual artist and milliner Alva Wilson. It's the 27th of October and it's at St. Luke's, Leagrave, High Street, Luton. The 27th of October, which is a Thursday at 7 o'clock. So I have to mention that. You can look it up.
I was going to say, we've got the information's on the
so they go
at the bottom of the page, so you can visit his website's on there, his Instagram connection. So get a pen and paper, take a picture, and just get in touch and try and support.
Yeah, so we'll obviously have to bring Alva back at a later date.
Yeah. Maybe after you've done the event and see how the event went forward.
Yes, perhaps if you do go to the event, you can let us know.
Yeah.
It's also lovely to hear that Alva has done all of this thing, because my own father was a tailor. Yes. But he couldn't get a job here as a tailor because jobs like that, when he came, jobs like that was for white people, not for black people, you know? So when you see, I can't remember that young guy now that's the master tailor for England.
I can't remember what his name is.
I can't remember his name either now. But when I see him, I'm really proud of him, you know, because I'm thinking my dad never got that thing. And I know my dad was good. Yeah.
My granddad did tailoring, but my dad didn't want to do tailoring, and my dad became an engineer in the end. So it all kind of played to how things have moved on. And obviously I know even with history now, there are still things that are far behind at the same time, but we as Black people are trying to move on ahead, and we're not letting things stop us anymore. Our time is running out, so
okay.
I was just going to jump in and just say very quickly, it's interesting how all three of our lives kind of interconnect, because, you know, Sandra, both our mothers were auxiliaries. My grandfather was a tailor in Kingston.
Yes, I know. That's what my granddad was at in Clarendon. But listen, look, we need to let you know, because we are coming to an end. Our next Women's LIK is the 27th of November. It's always a Sunday, 12 noon. And Patsy, listen, you've actually saved the day, because we didn't get Alva. And the other thing is, we can even talk forever, because we've got a lot to say, and you've got interesting varied life. We want to thank you for coming. You've saved the day. Thank you for coming to Women's LIK and talking to us. But hopefully, when we have an event where we meet in person, we can get together and have an audience, because that would be really nice to hear you again.
Very interesting.
And you speak so eloquently about your life. Everything you're telling us is so real. Have you got a last word, Angela? I'm going to pass you over.
Do you know, Patsy, I'm just going to say, just let me know when you've written your book of your life story, because it needs to be put down in writing.
think so.
I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out there.
You know?
See, there you go, Patsy. It needs to happen. Needs to happen. So let me know when you've written your book.
I probably should
first
take
one there.
notice, shouldn't I?
It's amazing. I mean, we've only just had a
Thank
snapshot of
you.
your life, but
yeah, that's a real snapshot. Really interesting.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
thank you to everybody who's watching. Obviously, if you're watching now, thank you very much. And obviously, you can obviously watch us on YouTube. There are other shows that you can watch.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time. Enjoy your Sunday.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Thank you.